Welcome to our video series on mindful loving. This is a series on loving. It's based on our book, Mindful Loving, A Guide to Loving with Passion and Purpose. I'm Kathleen Todd.
And I'm Diana Baysinger.
I work as a psychotherapist, life and relationship coach in a private practice in Tempe, Arizona. I work with people who struggle with pain from issues in their lives and seek to really feel better. In my work with couples in sex therapy and relationship coaching, I not only help couples deal with issues like their sexual trauma, sexual dysfunction, performance issues, but I also help people begin to accept and celebrate their sexual selves. And they get to learn how to create more healthy, exciting, passionate, loving relationships. I continue to be awed and inspired by the strength, power, and resilience of healing in the human spirit.
And I'm a retired licensed marriage and family therapist. I had a private practice in Tempe, Arizona for over 28 years. And during that time, I was recruited by an international coaching organization. And I became a trainer and trained people all over the world to use their coaching system in their businesses. So today I have an active coaching and consulting business. And with both of our experiences and our different areas of expertise, Kathleen and I came to collaborate. And we have a mission. And our mission is to bring information and inspiration to you about mindful loving. You know, what can it be like in your own life, and how can you transform that into your own loving relationships?
So to start with, let's answer the question, what is mindful loving? Mindful loving is a way of loving that truly takes our loving up a notch. Mindful loving is based in the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness has been around for centuries, and it's a practice about being present, paying attention in the moment without judgment. When we live mindfully, we get to experience life more fully. Mindfulness is a way of enriching our lives. It's like paying attention to that sunset and allowing yourself to just be wowed by the beauty of the colors. Or it's about stopping for a moment and paying attention to that song and listen to the music and allow your spirit to just be filled by the wonder of that song. Research has really shown many benefits to mindfulness. Mindfulness enhances our immune system. It helps us live a more balanced life. It helps with managing stress. It can increase our mental clarity and allow us to really live a more fulfilling and enriching life. So mindful loving is about taking the practice of mindfulness and really embedding it, incorporating it into our love relationships. When we love mindfully, we set our intention to love with passion and purpose. We set our intention to be present, to be open and thoughtful, and really experience our partner in a more fully loving way. So this experience of being present and thoughtful and open to loving and being loved really has a great impact in our lives.
You might just want to ask yourself right now, in what ways am I practicing a mindful loving relationship, right?
It's a good question really to ask as we go through this series, to take a moment, and it's a way of really being mindful when you ask yourself that question. you may not, fully, as we're talking about mindful loving, fully understand, but we'd like to really have you think about what is mindful loving in my own relationship. Think about maybe that couple that chooses to be mindful in their relationship. And so when one of them comes home from work at the end of the day, he or she sets the intention to seek out the partner, to make that loving connection instead of going on with doing other things. So it's really practicing paying attention and thoughtful and being so present with our partner, no matter what has just happened, if their kids are screaming or dogs are barking or whatever, but it's following through on that intention. Or another example, maybe when you set the intention to really be engaged in a conversation with your partner and listen to what he or she is saying. And that certainly means that you intentionally put the cell phone aside, turn it off, so that you can be fully present and open to that conversation. And all of these really do impact our lives. And mindfulness and mindful loving truly has great impact in our lives.
Because mindful loving is, when we practice it, it does have an impact. And what impact, what that is it ignites passion and purpose. And if you stop and think about, well, what is passion? Passion is the experience we have when our heart is singing, right? That moment of joy. Or maybe it's a moment of peace or a moment of deep gratitude. That's passion. That's the experience of passion. And underlying passion is a value. I'm sure you've all been asked, what are your values? But they're just words. Living our values is living from passion. When we fulfill our passion, we then become more purposeful. Our purpose becomes fulfilled. Can you imagine, as an individual, you're asking yourself, what are my passions? What is my sense of purpose? And how that gets embedded in your love relationships. For me, passion is when I'm with my grandchildren. They have a sense of wonder that reignites my sense of wonder. And when I think about my sense of purpose, I think at the age of 15, I remember thinking, I didn't know how or I didn't know when, but I wanted to be of service and I wanted to make a difference in people's lives. And I'm very grateful that that purpose is being served. And so when you think of these things and these questions are setting you on a mindful, loving path. And there are things that we've learned and there are things that we have yet to learn.
The key there is what you just said is about things that we've learned. When you think about loving, realize that we all have learned how to love, but yet there's no formal education about learning how to love in healthy, fulfilling ways. The good news, though, is that even if we have learned ways of loving that are ineffective or not as fulfilling as we want, we get to learn new ways of loving. Anything that we learned can be upgraded and enhanced. We get to learn new things about how to practice mindful loving. We get to learn about the skills of listening from the heart, and really making that connection with all of who I am with my partner. We get to learn ways of speaking. When I speak for myself, I take responsibility for what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and what I want to say. We've also learned that we are all separate and unique individuals, and that we will have differences. That's a given. What we get to learn about mindful loving, though, is that we get to accept these differences and respect each other's differences and operate and live from that place of loving acceptance and understanding. And when we do this, we really are experiencing and setting our intention to love mindfully.
So this series is really for everyone. We'll be covering such things as the basic components of mindful loving, which is loving communication, Kathleen just mentioned, speaking from that I position. We'll talk a little bit about understanding and respecting differences. How do you do that? Other things that we will be covering would be the cycles, the natural cycles of mindful loving. Life has a flow. Loving has a flow. And sometimes we're going to have connection, and sometimes we're going to have disconnection. And mindful loving brings us back to each other. And then we have over 35 different practical tools. It was our intention to give you practical and simple things that you can implement, in a moment. And it can change and affect, your relationship. So these are the things that will help you have information and hopefully inspire you to create your own mindful loving relationships.
So as we're coming to a close now, we have a challenge for you. We asked you earlier to ask yourself the question about your own mindful loving relationship, or how are you mindful in your loving relationship right now? So to expand on that, we challenge you to answer that question and to think about specific ways that you can choose to be more mindful in your loving relationships right now. Don't judge yourself. Just be open to and have some fun with figuring out, how can I do this? How can I really be more loving and mindful in my relationship right now?
And you can find more details about how to do those things and stop and ask yourself questions along the way in our book. We will continue with the series. We want to thank you so much for joining us today and invite you to leave comments and questions at the end of the video. If you want a confidential question, please address that at our website, because we want to connect with you. We want your own stories. We want to be able to embed some of the questions you have and the answers and responses we can give back into this series. So thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to continuing.
So we're excited to meet with you again, and in the meantime, be mindful in your life and in your loving relationships.